After 15 years, my boss fired me over a rumor set 5 days later. His top client offered me a job. The morning sun spilled through the blinds of my corner office as I adjusted the framed photo on my desk. A snapshot from Raventech's 10th anniversary party. There I stood beside Mr. Grayson, both of us beaming, his arm around my shoulder like we were old friends rather than boss and employee. 5 years had passed since that photo was taken. 15 since I'd first walked through Raventech's doors as a hungry, ambitious marketing strategist with something to prove. For you. Always. I smiled, setting down the coffee mug emblazoned with the company logo I'd helped design. Morgan, got a minute? Liz from accounting poked her head through my doorway, interrupting my nostalgia. Raventech wasn't just where I worked. It was practically my second home. 15 years of 60-hour weeks, of canceled vacations for emergency client meetings, of building the company from a scrappy startup to one of the most respected marketing firms in the region. I'd poured my soul into these walls, and the fruits of that labor were everywhere, in the awards lining the hallway, in the loyal clients whose business I'd cultivated from nothing, in the team of junior associates I'd personally trained. That's what happens when you actually listen to what clients need instead of what they say they want. I flipped through the reports, a familiar sense of satisfaction warming my chest. Henderson had been on the verge of walking when I'd stepped in 8 months ago. The Henderson account numbers came in. We're up 23% from last quarter. She handed me a folder, her eyes bright with excitement. Send him in, I replied, straightening the papers on my desk. And Liz? Great work on these numbers. I nodded, trying to ignore the slight twist in my stomach. Aiden Mercer, 29 years old, with an MBA from Wharton and a resume that read like a Harvard Business Review case study. He'd been with us for just 3 months, but already the office dynamic had shifted. Miss Grayson, who'd never been easily impressed, seemed positively enchanted. Oh, and the new guy's looking for you, Liz added, lingering in the doorway. Aiden something? Mr. Grayson's new hire. Morgan, just the person I wanted to see. He strode in without waiting for an invitation, claiming the chair across from my desk. I've been looking over the Westview proposal, and I think I've spotted an opportunity we're missing. I leaned back, gesturing for him to continue. This was the 3rd time this week he'd spotted an opportunity in one of my accounts. She grinned before disappearing, replaced moments later by Aiden's tall figure in the doorway. Everything about him was polished to perfection. His tailored navy suit, his carefully styled dark hair, the confident set of his shoulders. That's precisely the outdated thinking we need to move beyond, he interrupted, leaning forward. Mr. Grayson agrees. In fact, we discussed it at length during our golf game this weekend. They're ripe for a digital transformation strategy. I'm thinking an omnichannel approach with embedded AI analytics. My contacts at Google could give us preferential rates on their enterprise platform. His words flowed easily, sprinkled with the kind of buzzy terminology that made executives' eyes light up, and that often translated to expensive solutions with minimal real-world impact. Westview is a family-owned business. Aiden, they're more interested in deepening community connections than digital transformation. I kept my tone neutral, educational. Their customers value the personal touch. That's why our last campaign focused on local stories. I blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Golf game? In 15 years, Mr. Grayson had never once invited me to join him for a round of golf, despite knowing I played. I pushed away the twinge of hurt, focusing on the matter at hand. I'm sure there's a middle ground approach that would serve the client best, I offered diplomatically. Why don't we set up a joint call with them tomorrow? Aiden's smile didn't reach his eyes. Actually, Mr. Grayson suggested I take point on Westview moving forward. Fresh perspective and all that. The twist in my stomach tightened into a knot. Westview had been my account for 8 years. I'd helped them through a rebranding, a leadership transition, and a potential PR disaster when their product had been incorrectly linked to a health scare. I see, I said carefully. Well, I'm happy to brief you on their history with us. There are some sensitivities you should be aware of before. No need. He stood up, buttoning his jacket with a practiced motion. Best to approach with fresh eyes, don't you think? No preconceptions. As he turned to leave, I noticed something that sent a chill down my spine. Through the glass wall of my office, I could see Cynthia from HR and Dave from legal huddled in conversation. both glancing toward my office before quickly looking away when they caught my eye. I tried to ignore it, focus on the work, prove my value through results rather than drama. But the atmosphere grew increasingly strained. Twice I walked into the break room to find conversations abruptly halting. Once I distinctly heard my name followed by a "I can't believe it" before the speakers noticed me approaching. Over the next few weeks, the strange looks and whispered conversations multiplied. Longtime colleagues suddenly found reasons to cancel our standing lunch dates. Meetings I'd previously led were rescheduled without my knowledge. Clients I'd cultivated for years were suddenly directed to Aiden for fresh insights. But it didn't settle down. If anything, the invisible wall between me and the rest of the office grew higher. I began double-checking every report, triple confirming every client communication. The confidence I'd built over 15 years of proven success began to crack. "You're being paranoid," I told myself, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror after a particularly tense management meeting where Mr. Grayson had credited Aiden with strategic insights that had originally been mine. "This is just new blood stirring things up. It'll settle down." Then came the morning when Sarah, Mr. Grayson's assistant of 20 years, couldn't quite meet my eyes as she delivered the message, "Mr. Grayson would like to see you in his office." Immediately, she adjusted her glasses, still avoiding my gaze. "He said, immediately, Morgan." Her tone sent alarm bells ringing through my mind. In 15 years, immediately had only preceded major company announcements or serious client crises. "Is everything okay?" I asked, searching her face for clues. As I walked the familiar path to the corner office, past the awards I'd helped win, past the conference room where I'd trained dozens of now successful marketers, past the wall of client testimonials that might as well have had my name signed at the bottom of each one, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental was about to change. I had no idea just how right I was, or that the loyalty I'd given Raventech for 15 years was about to be tossed aside like yesterday's marketing trends. Mr. Grayson's office had always intimidated me. Even after 15 years, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline, a constant reminder of the high-stakes world we operated in. Usually, the view calmed me. Today, it made my stomach churn. "Close the door," Mr. Grayson said, without looking up from his computer. His voice carried none of the warmth I'd grown accustomed to over the years. I did as instructed, then stood awkwardly near his massive oak desk. He didn't offer me a seat. "Do you know why you're here, Morgan?" He finally looked up, his expression unreadable. "No, sir." My voice sounded smaller than I intended. He sighed heavily, removing his glasses and pinching the bridge of his nose. "We've received serious concerns about your conduct with one of our clients." The words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry?" "Carter and Bloom." He slid a folder across his desk. "According to reports, you've been misrepresenting figures, taking credit for work you didn't do, and nearly cost us the entire account." My mind raced to make sense of what I was hearing. Carter and Bloom was one of our biggest clients, one I'd personally brought in 4 years ago and had managed flawlessly ever since. That's completely false," I stammered, feeling heat rise to my face. "Who made these accusations? I deserve to face my accuser." "The source is irrelevant," Mr. Grayson replied coldly. "What matters is that we have evidence." "Evidence? What evidence?" I opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were printouts of email exchanges, portions highlighted in angry yellow. My emails, but somehow the context was missing, making innocent statements seem suspicious. "These are taken completely out of context. If you look at the full thread, there's more." He cut me off, handing me another document. "Financial projections you presented to them last month. The numbers don't add up, Morgan. They're inflated by nearly 30%. I stared at the page in disbelief. "This isn't the report I submitted. Someone's altered these figures. I have the original on my computer." "Stop." His voice was sharp. "This denial isn't helping your case." A terrible realization dawned on me. It was Aiden, wasn't it? He made these accusations. Mr. Grayson's expression hardened. "As I said, the source is irrelevant." "It's relevant if he's lying." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "I've given 15 years to this company. Doesn't that earn me the benefit of the doubt? A chance to defend myself?" "This isn't about your past contributions," he replied. It's about maintaining the integrity of our relationships now. The unfairness of it all made my head spin. At least let me speak with Carter and Bloom. They'll confirm everything I'm saying. They've already expressed their concerns. That's why we're here. He stood up, signaling that our conversation was reaching its end. Morgan, you've been a valuable part of Raven Tech for many years, but this breach of trust leaves me no choice. The room seemed to tilt sideways. What are you saying? Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. 5 words. 5 simple words that erased 15 years of dedication in an instant. You're firing me without an investigation, without even letting me properly respond to these allegations? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. HR has prepared your separation papers. His tone was businesslike, as if we were discussing a routine contract renewal rather than the demolition of my career. You'll be escorted to your office to collect personal belongings, then to the exit. As if on cue, Cynthia from HR appeared at the door, her face a mask of professional detachment. Behind her stood a security guard I'd greeted cheerfully every morning for years. "This is a mistake," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "A terrible mistake you'll regret." Mr. Grayson had already returned to his computer, dismissing me from his attention as easily as he dismissed me from the company I'd helped build. The walk to my office felt like a death march. Colleagues averted their eyes as I passed. Whispers now loud enough to hear fragments, saw it coming, and finally, when we reached my office, Cynthia handed me a cardboard box. "You have 15 minutes to collect personal items. Company property remains behind." I nodded numbly, unable to form words. 15 minutes for 15 years, 1 minute per year of service. As I mechanically placed my few personal possessions into the box, the photo frames, the coffee mug my first client had given me, a paperweight from my sister, I caught sight of Aiden through the glass wall. He stood in the conference room doorway, watching me with an expression that could almost be mistaken for sympathy, if not for the gleam of triumph in his eyes. When he noticed me looking, he had the audacity to offer a small, apologetic shrug before turning away. Security escorted me through the lobby, past confused receptionists and startled delivery people. No goodbye emails, no farewell lunch, no acknowledgement of 15 years of service. Just like that, I was outside on the sidewalk, clutching a half-empty box of memories, my keycard already deactivated. 15 years of loyalty, tossed aside over a rumor I hadn't even been allowed to disprove. The first night after being fired, I didn't sleep. I lay awake in my darkened apartment staring at the ceiling, replaying 15 years of memories like a movie stuck on fast forward. Moments I'd thought were significant, successful campaigns, late nights solving client crises, mentoring young marketers, suddenly seemed hollow, their meaning evaporated in an instant. By morning, shame had morphed into disbelief. I shuffled to my kitchen in the same clothes I'd worn the day before, mechanically making coffee I couldn't taste. My phone buzzed with a notification. An email from Sarah, Mr. Grayson's assistant. "Morgan, I'm so sorry about what happened. If there's anything I can do, sorry." Everyone was so sorry. Throughout the day, similar messages trickled in. Former colleagues expressing shock, offering vague support, promising to keep an ear out for opportunities. Not one of them questioned the allegations or offered to stand up for me. Not even those I'd personally trained, mentored, or saved from their own mistakes over the years. By the third day, the messages had slowed to a trickle, then stopped altogether. The silence was deafening. 15 years of professional relationships evaporated. Had any of them been real? Had anyone actually seen me as more than a useful resource? I tried reaching out to a few clients I'd worked closely with, thinking they might at least want to know why I'd suddenly vanished. Most didn't respond. Those who did sent carefully worded replies that told me everything I needed to know. Raven Tech had already crafted a narrative about my departure, and no one was willing to question it. On the 4th day, I finally showered, changed clothes, and forced myself to sit at my home office desk. I pulled up my resume, untouched for over a decade, and stared at it until the words blurred together. How did one explain being fired after 15 years? What references could I possibly use? As I scrolled through my contact list, a realization slowly dawned on me. One name was conspicuously absent from the flood of sorry messages. Ethan Bloom, senior partner at Carter & Bloom, the very client I'd supposedly wronged. Ethan and I had developed a solid professional relationship over the years. We'd exchanged holiday cards. He'd sent me a handwritten note when my father passed away 2 years ago. If he truly believed I'd misrepresented figures and nearly tanked his account, wouldn't he have reached out if only to express disappointment? I pulled up my email and searched for our last exchange. It had been just 3 days before my firing. A routine check-in about their upcoming campaign launch. His response had been characteristically warm and appreciative, ending with, "Couldn't do this without you, Morgan. Your insight is what keeps us coming back to Raven Tech year after year." Those weren't the words of someone who had complained about my conduct. I scrolled further back, reviewing months of correspondence. Nothing indicated tension or concern, quite the opposite. Our communications reflected a healthy, productive client relationship built on trust. "Something doesn't add up," I muttered, reaching for my phone before remembering I no longer had any right to contact a Raven Tech client. What if Ethan himself had been misled? What if he had no idea I'd been fired? I paced my apartment, the fog of self-pity finally lifting enough for analytical thought. If Aiden had fabricated evidence against me, and I was increasingly certain he had, then he must have had a reason. Power, position, or was there something specific about the Carter & Bloom account that he wanted control over? My laptop chimed with an email notification, probably another empty hang-in-there message from someone who'd never hire me. Instead, I saw an unfamiliar address with the subject line, "Follow up on last week's presentation." I opened it cautiously. "Dear Morgan, we've been trying to reach you for several days regarding the preliminary campaign materials we received last week. There are some significant discrepancies from what we discussed, and frankly, the quality is not up to the standard we've come to expect from you. Could we schedule a call tomorrow to address these concerns? Best regards, Layla Harmon, Marketing Director, Carter & Bloom." My heart raced as I read the email 3 times. Carter & Bloom had been trying to reach me. They didn't know I was gone, and more importantly, someone else had sent them work in my name. Work that clearly didn't meet our established standards. I checked all my accounts again, hunting for any prior messages I might have missed. There were none from Carter & Bloom, which meant Raven Tech had likely intercepted their communications after my departure. The pieces were starting to fit together. Whatever game Aiden was playing, he'd clearly underestimated the relationship I'd built with this client. The question now was, what should I do with this information? As I considered my options, my phone, silent for most of the day, suddenly rang. The screen displayed a number I knew by heart, though it wasn't saved in my contacts. Ethan Bloom was calling. My finger hovered over the screen, a moment of hesitation born from professional instinct. Would answering this call constitute interference with a Raven Tech client? Could they sue me for that? On the 5th ring, I pushed the fear aside and answered. "Hello, this is Morgan." "Morgan." Ethan's voice was flat, unreadable. "We need to talk." My throat tightened. This was it. The moment when a respected professional I'd worked with for years would tell me he knew what I'd done, how disappointed he was, how he'd trusted me. "Of course," I managed, sinking onto my couch. Best to face the music with whatever dignity I had left. "I've sent you 3 emails this week," he continued, an edge of irritation in his tone. "Our campaign launches in 2 weeks, and suddenly you're impossible to reach. That's not like you." I blinked, trying to process his words. "You've been trying to reach me?" "Yes, since Monday. First about the quarterly strategy document, which frankly left a lot to be desired. Then about the inconsistencies in the projection models." He paused. "Is everything all right? You sound off." The realization hit me like a physical blow. He didn't know. After all the humiliation, the shame, the career-ending accusations, Ethan Bloom had no idea I'd been fired for supposedly mishandling his account. "I no longer work at Raven Tech," I said, the words still bitter on my tongue. As of 5 days ago. The silence that followed was so complete, I checked to see if the call had dropped. "That explains a lot," he finally said, his tone shifting from irritation to something harder to define. "The last report we got, garbage. That new kid of yours couldn't explain half of it when we questioned the numbers." A spark of vindication flared in my chest. "New kid?" "Aiden something. Said he'd been working with you on our account for months, which I found strange since you'd never mentioned him." Ethan's voice grew sharper. Morgan, what the hell is going on? Why would Raventech remove you from our account without even informing us? I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. They didn't just remove me from your account, Ethan. They fired me. For allegedly misrepresenting figures to Carter and Bloom and nearly costing Raventech your business. Another long pause. That's absurd, he finally said, his tone incredulous. We've never made any such complaint. Quite the opposite. We specifically requested in our last quarterly review that you remain our primary contact. The weight that had been crushing my chest for 5 days eased slightly. I was never shown any formal complaint, just accused and dismissed within about 15 minutes. 15 minutes, Ethan repeated, disbelief coloring his voice. After 15 years? Ironic, isn't it? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. What's ironic is that Aiden fellow, insisting we'd requested him as our new account lead, Ethan replied. When we questioned the quality of his work, he claimed you'd left him insufficient notes before your sudden departure. Each new revelation was simultaneously vindicating and infuriating. Aiden hadn't just pushed me out, he'd been actively preparing to take over my client relationships. The materials he sent you, I said carefully, were they similar to the ones I'd been developing? Similar enough to know they started as your work, different enough that they lost all strategic coherence. Ethan sighed heavily. Morgan, I've been in this business for 30 years. I know when someone's trying to pass off borrowed work as their own. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by confirmation of what I'd suspected. I appreciate you telling me this, Ethan. Don't appreciate me yet, he replied, his voice taking on a decidedly businesslike tone. Are you free tomorrow morning? Say, 10 o'clock at Westfield Coffee on set. The request caught me off guard. For coffee, he said simply, and a conversation about certain professional matters that might interest you. My mind raced with possibilities. Was he just being kind to someone who'd been unfairly dismissed? Or was there more to this invitation? I'll be there, I replied, trying to temper the hope rising in my chest. Good, and Morgan? His voice softened slightly. Bring your portfolio. The full one, not just the sanitized version Raventech allowed you to show clients. After we hung up, I stood in my living room, the phone still warm in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. For 5 days, I'd been drowning in shame, questioning 15 years of professional judgment. Now, suddenly, there was a lifeline, tenuous perhaps, but real. I walked to my home office and pulled my complete portfolio from the filing cabinet, the one containing all my original concepts, including those Raventech had modified or watered down before presenting to clients. For the first time since hearing those 5 devastating words, your employment is terminated, effective immediately, I felt something other than despair. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I might finally get some answers. And perhaps, just perhaps, a path forward. Westfield Coffee bustled with the usual morning crowd, students hunched over laptops, professionals conducting informal meetings, baristas calling out elaborate drink orders. I arrived 15 minutes early, portfolio tucked under my arm, and claimed a quiet corner table with good privacy. My hands trembled slightly as I arranged my materials. What exactly was Ethan planning? A courtesy meeting to offer offers? Career advice? I'd spent half the night rehearsing explanations, defenses, and gratitude, uncertain which would be needed. At precisely 10 o'clock, Ethan strode through the door. Unlike our usual meetings where he projected casual approachability in business casual attire, today he wore a crisp charcoal suit that screamed serious business. More surprisingly, he wasn't alone. A slim woman with steel gray hair and sharp eyes followed him. Vivian Carter herself, the founding partner of Carter and Bloom. My heart rate doubled instantly. I'd met Vivian exactly twice in 4 years, both times during major contract renewals. Morgan, Ethan nodded, extending his hand. Thank you for coming. Of course, I replied, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. Miss Carter, it's an honor to see you again. Vivian's piercing gaze assessed me without warmth or hostility. Purely analytical. Let's skip the pleasantries. We have a situation that requires resolution. Once they were seated and coffees ordered, Ethan pushed a folder across the table. These are the last 3 reports we received from Raventech. 1 prepared by you, 2 by your replacement. I opened the folder, instantly recognizing my meticulous work in the first document, followed by increasingly sloppy derivatives in the subsequent reports. The quality differential is obvious, Vivian stated flatly. But that's just the surface issue. Ethan nodded. After our conversation yesterday, I had our analytics team conduct a thorough review. These later reports don't just show a drop in quality, they contain fabricated data, growth projections inflated by nearly 40%, demographic breakdowns that contradict our internal research, implementation timelines that are completely unrealistic. In short, Vivian continued, had we proceeded with the campaign as outlined in these documents, we would have wasted approximately $2.7 million on ineffective strategies targeting the wrong audience segments. I stared at them, stunned by the magnitude of the deception. I had no idea it was this bad. Neither did we, initially, Ethan admitted. Your replacement was quite convincing, charming, even. But when questioned on specifics, he deflected with jargon and blamed inherited processes for any inconsistencies. Vivian's expression hardened. We don't appreciate being manipulated, especially by someone hoping we wouldn't notice the sudden absence of our most trusted contact at Raven Tech. So, we started digging, Ethan continued, pulling out another document. We went back through every successful campaign Raven Tech has handled for us over the past 4 years. Do you know what we found? I shook my head, though I was beginning to see where this was heading. Your fingerprints, everywhere. He spread out printouts of campaign reports, strategy documents, and creative briefs. Your analytical frameworks, your writing style. Even when others were listed as lead strategists, the core insights clearly originated with you. You were the only one holding things together, Vivian stated matter-of-factly. The numbers don't lie. Our ROI on Raven Tech campaigns has directly correlated with your level of involvement. The validation was overwhelming after days of questioning my own worth. Thank you for telling me this. It means more than you know. We're not telling you this to make you feel better, Vivian replied with characteristic directness. We're telling you because we have a business problem that requires a solution. Ethan smiled slightly at his partner's bluntness. What Vivian means is that we've lost confidence in Raven Tech's ability to deliver quality work without you. So we'd like to offer you a position, directly. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. I'm sorry, Director of Strategic Marketing, Vivian clarified. Reporting directly to me, competitive salary, full benefits, substantial creative control. But I struggled to process what I was hearing. I was just fired. Accused of misconduct with your company specifically, which we now understand was a fabrication, Ethan countered. A particularly clumsy one, given that they use our name without anticipating we might actually compare notes with you. We don't care about Raven Tech's internal drama, Vivian added dismissively. We care about results. You consistently delivered them. This Aiden person does not. Ethan slid another folder toward me, this one containing an employment contract. Take the weekend to review the terms. But know that we need an answer by Monday. Our campaign launches in 2 weeks, and we'd prefer to have you steering the ship. I opened the contract with trembling fingers, scanning the details, a salary 30% higher than what I'd been making, expanded creative authority, direct client interaction, without agency filtration. Why would you do this? I asked, still disbelieving. You could simply demand Ravenetch put me back on your account. Vivian's expression softened marginally. Because talent shouldn't be tethered to people who don't value it, and because her eyes flicked briefly to Ethan before returning to me, loyalty should be rewarded, not exploited. As they stood to leave, Ethan placed a card on the table. My personal number. Call anytime this weekend with questions. He paused, then added with quiet intensity. This offer isn't charity, Morgan. It's strategy. The best business decision is often the most human one. I sat alone long after they'd gone, the contract open before me. Possibilities unfurling like sails catching wind after days adrift in stillness. I didn't wait until Monday. By Saturday evening, I'd signed the contract and emailed it to Ethan with a simple message. Ready to begin. Taking the offer felt like breathing after drowning. The weekend passed in a blur of excitement and vindication as I prepared for my new role. For the first time in a week, I slept through the night, waking refreshed instead of haunted by questions and regrets. Monday morning arrived with a surreal quality. Instead of the familiar route to Raven Tech, I drove downtown to the sleek glass tower housing Carter and Bloom. The security guard greeted me by name, handing over a freshly printed ID badge that read, Morgan Taylor, Director of Strategic Marketing. Miss Carter is expecting you, he said with a respectful nod. Vivian's corner office made Mr. Grayson's look modest by comparison, but it was her greeting that truly highlighted the difference in leadership. Morgan, she said, rising to shake my hand. Welcome to the team. Your office is ready, and I've scheduled introductions with key department heads throughout the day. No probation period, no whispered rumors, just professional respect and immediate integration. Thank you for this opportunity, I replied, meaning every word. Thank me by salvaging the campaign that young man at Raven Tech nearly derailed, she answered with characteristic directness. Ethan's assembled the team in conference room A. They've been briefed on the leadership change. By lunchtime, I'd met my core team, 6 bright, engaged professionals who seemed genuinely relieved to have clear direction. By the end of the day, we'd corrected the strategic missteps in Aiden's plan and developed a workable timeline for the campaign launch. This is what competence looks like, Vivian remarked. Reviewing our revised strategy, I made the right decision. 3 days into my new position, my phone lit up with a LinkedIn notification. Sarah from Raven Tech had viewed my profile, which now proudly displayed my new title and company. Within hours, former colleagues began reaching out with congratulatory messages that thinly veiled their curiosity. So great to see you landing on your feet. What an amazing opportunity. Would love to catch up sometime. I responded politely but briefly to each, refusing to indulge their hunger for gossip. The truth would reach them soon through other channels. It came sooner than even I expected. 1 week after I joined Carter and Bloom, Ethan called Raven Tech to formally terminate their contract. Mr. Grayson personally phoned twice today, Ethan told me with a slight smile. He seemed quite concerned about losing their largest client without warning. Did you tell him why? I couldn't help asking. I simply informed him that we'd found a more effective partnership arrangement that better suited our needs. Ethan's eyes twinkled. I may have mentioned that our new Director of Strategic Marketing has an excellent understanding of our brand values. Word spread like wildfire through the industry. Within 2 weeks, I was managing not only Carter and Bloom's marketing division, but also overseeing strategy for 3 more high-profile clients who had followed our lead and severed ties with Raven Tech. The exodus hit Raven Tech hard. Their stock took a noticeable dip. Industry blogs speculated about internal problems. Behind-the-scenes sources reported escalating tensions. Then came the email I'd been half expecting, half dreading. Subject line: Coffee, Sender, Mr. Grayson. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Morgan, I believe there may have been a misunderstanding regarding your departure from Raven Tech. Perhaps we acted hastily on incomplete information. I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss potential reconciliation. Regards, Richard Grayson. Reconciliation. As if 15 years discarded over a rumor was a minor misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a cappuccino. I composed a response, deleted it, then wrote another. Finally, I settled on simplicity. Mr. Grayson, my calendar is fully booked with client meetings for the foreseeable future. Perhaps check back in 15 years. Best regards, Morgan Taylor, Director of Strategic Marketing, Carter and Bloom Associates. I added my new professional signature with its impressive title, complete with direct line and executive assistant's contact information. Hit send. 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. Just heard an interesting rumor, he said, when I answered. Apparently, Aiden Mercer has been quietly demoted at Raven Tech. Something about organizational restructuring. I laughed softly. Imagine that. Karma works in mysterious ways, Ethan replied. By the way, the Westview presentation you prepare is brilliant. Their CEO called personally to thank me. I'm just doing my job, I said, looking around my spacious office with its view of the city. A view that included the Raven Tech building several blocks away, now looking smaller than I remembered. Well, your name is on the front page of every report now, Ethan reminded me. As it should have been all along. As I hung up, I touched the nameplate on my desk, a gift from Vivian on my first day. Morgan Taylor, it read, Director of Strategic Marketing. No rumor had given me this title. No whisper campaign could take it away. My work spoke for itself, louder and clearer than ever before. And this time, My name was always on the front page.